last days of my youth.
I know that's right, homie.
Oh, that was one thing Julio always said. He's like, I don't know how many times he's gone to Tim. He's like, dude, will you please let me be your private pilot? So yeah, he's going to be a jet setter.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. God made this big, beautiful world, and there's too much on here that, you know, that we wouldn't even dream of seeing. So, yeah, it's not meant to stay in one little box.
This is like Rochester's own entourage
right now.
here.
Look
That's
at her.
right.
She's doing so good.
The entourage from
No, this
Brock.
probably wasn't a good idea.
Why?
What? What was it?
Because, you know, I should have came down here before. You know, I want to say there's children here. So.
Oh.
What is that? So you would you express your art differently?
I'm very introverted when it comes to, you know, having to talk about what I do. I'm
Okay.
not, you know, some people are so, like, I see how you guys, like, you're so confident. I've always been that back-seated kind of person, like, I want to stay in the background and let my work show for me. It's very hard for me to talk about it. I don't know.
So how about if we don't talk about your work? And how about if instead we let people see a little bit more of who you are, so that when they see your work, they're going to look at that and go, I got it. And they grabbed it. All right, because here's my thing. Like, people need to know
Are you on
you.
right now?
Yeah.
No warning or nothing.
What do you mean? No.
You guys just ambushed people.
Look at her. She's.
What do you mean? Okay.
She's shrinking like a turtle. She's
Here it is. Here it is. Wait. We ambushed her.
Relax.
Narita, would you like to come on? Now or at 9? Come on. You ambushed me.
Because I gotta work.
What
at
do you?
9.
Oh, you mean you want to get out before Tag
What's that?
gets here?
Oh,
Oh, do you want to like work on the actual lighting?
never be sitting here.
That was just a couple spots that were.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It's kind of dark tonight. We can kind of fix that when we go to break. But so tonight, if you're actually willing and can maybe see how this works for relaxing, because I know one of the things for certain I've been talking with Narita about, and I would love to have a show with her, because the whole idea of legends, right? That's she has such an understanding of people that I don't, and you know, certainly like a Jimi Hendrix thing where we could actually sit there and talk through that has a very broad audience. I'd love to be able to have that kind of a show with you, and that's kind of cool. It just kind of opens up and have a conversation around it. So, what I was saying, so for tonight, if you will, you can kind of join our show and see how it feels, and you can just relax and just say like,
Just be the
it's
peanut
cool.
gallery up
be
close.
the peanut gallery, yeah. Close.
You've done that before. I've heard your voice and not seen
Yeah, but I'm over there.
But that's okay though.
Just don't look at the screen.
Okay.
So tonight, actually, the conversation that Tess and I are going to be having after we do a short interlude into the minimum wage
I knew
debacle.
it. I knew he was going to bring it up, so I came ready.
You came prepared.
I knew you were going to bring it up.
I came prepared. McDonald's employees should be paid $15 an hour. Tonight's discussion that we're going to get to is the conversations every relationship should have.
Okay.
All right, so
And who can't relate to that, right?
Exactly.
I would think so.
That's what I'm saying. Everyone can relate to that. I was just saying that for her so she can relax, because everyone can relate to
And
that.
I'm figuring if
Oh,
you
I
guys
can
just talk.
definitely relate to that one. That's for sure.
So, what kind of relationship, what kind of conversations do you think every relationship should have?
I think the most important relationship, the most important conversation a relationship should have is your belief system and your value system. Because too many people get together, and myself included, which is why I'm, no longer married. You think you put all that stuff on the back burner, then you find out you get together, you get married, and you have completely different ideals. You have completely different faiths. And then children come along, and then it's like, wait a minute, but I think that needs to be, if you're going to be in a relationship, I'm not talking, you go on your first date and it's like, so how do you want to raise our kids? I'm not talking about that. But when you are in that committed relationship, that needs to be discussed. That's not discussed. People are like, blah, blah, it's not this. it is serious, because those are the things that break people up.
Well, even something that's simple, you wouldn't think so, but whether both want to have children.
Whether both want to have children, if you believe in God, and or what you do believe in, because that is that's a huge thing. I mean, you have a child and, okay, this person thinks we're going to raise this child this way. No, we're going to raise this child. This is how it's raised. And those are conversations couples don't have when they get together. They really don't. You know, it's like, oh, I know what he likes to eat. I know his favorite color. Oh, he likes, you know, it's just things like that. Or likes to go out and we get along really great. We have, but that stuff goes away.
And you may not even have the same vision.
Exactly.
I mean, I know, in my case, and I was married for 30 years, I am a person who is really a gypsy. I love to live in different places, and I mean, I change jobs every 2 years.
Yeah.
I like to move, you know, like every 2 Septembers. You know what I mean? I've lived in different parts of the country. So for me, I've always been sort of this free-spirited person who just wanted to get out, you know. And my ex-husband, he was, you know, grew up in Brooklyn, worked in Brooklyn, went to school in Brooklyn, and didn't really leave until he met me, and we ended up moving to Alaska. But, you know, even staying there, we were there 15 years. I would have only stayed there maybe 3.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I'm not, this is the longest I've ever lived in one place. The longest. And I came here in 94.
All right, so, see, you can hang with that conversation.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so we're going to go to break, and when we come back, we're going to continue this conversation right after we talk about the minimum wage. We'll be right back. All right, hold on, I'm going to try to fix the light here. watch it later and get the information. Yeah.
We could just edit it on Udicci.
You gotta, like, there's this whole social media thing going on.
Even though it's Guerrilla TV,
It's Guerrilla
it is
TV.
2015.
It is 2015.
So we have the technology of 2015.
And we have we have the ability. I mean, again, right here, we know it's 7-Eleven on my phone. Do you have one of those? The clock.
I have a phone, but I just think it's rude to have a phone on the table.
I agree with you. I was just wondering about the
Put
clock.
mine
Not
on
you.
vibrate.
Not you. I mean, I turned mine off.
No, I'm just trying to keep straight things here. All right, so we are going to come
That's
back.
not your job.
Okay. Good. Delegate, Tess.
The host
I like
doesn't
it.
keep track of the time. It's not the host's job.
That's not how this is done. That's not how any of it is done.
This is Guerrilla TV.
Am I done? Much better with YouTube.
No, because seriously, let's
No,
get into this.
we
Let's
need-
get into
we
this
need-
$15 an hour minimum wage debate. That's going to begin with a quote.
Okay, here's the quote. No business which depends for existence on paying less than living wages to its workers has any right to continue in this country.
That absolutely sounds like something a communist government would say.
Well, that was President Franklin Delano Roosevelt in 1930.
So I guess that kind of proves the exact point I just made.
What?
He is one of the most,
Pro-labor.
yeah, I mean, absolutely.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
Well, if you think so.
No, I do think so.
Right, I got you. I understand. If you're pro-labor, but that, I mean, here's the thing. It's not like you can't be pro-labor and pro-business. You can be both.
Yes.
So what this is more an economic question than a business question.
Well, the problem I had with the comment that you made was that it was never
the
intended.
comment that I made was I had a startup, my first job.
Right.
I worked at a fast food joint. I got paid minimum wage. I wasn't expected to raise a family, so it was enough for me. That was my comment.
No, you said it was never intended for people to raise families on.
Is that what I said?
Yeah, something
Okay.
to that effect.
Something
That's
to
so
that effect.
rude. That's
Let's,
so rude.
What?
That's so
well,
rude.
you're going to call me out
That
on
is
national,
that is-
international TV.
That is so rude.
You're calling me
That is
out on-
so rude. That is so rude.
That's not what I
That's
said.
just rude.
That's not what I said.
I know you said the little thing about your little McDonald's job.
Yes, I did, but I did not say
The sad
what
thing
you're saying.
is,
See, that's
it's more people than just teenagers that have those jobs because of the world today, because of the economy. There are people raising
But that's
families
that
on that.
was his point. The reason it was started was because people were raising families, and there needed to be at least a minimum wage. So
that's why you
it was
think that was
particularly well.
So how about this? How about if we take a person, and what's his name? We call him Walter Williams.
Was this
who-
the second comment that you made or the main comment that you made? That you're
I-
guys referencing?
it was a singular post.
He
But I
made
mean-
one post.
There was several comments on it.
No, what was the primary post?
He made the first post.
All right. So, if you will, it's like I don't view this as a. Okay, here's the real. If you saw the conversation that went on with Adam and Dave and I, so if I were to come in here and say, you know what we should do? We should eliminate the income tax and we should put a flat 25% across the board and everybody's happy. You good with that? No. Nobody's good with the flat tax because it has its highest oppression. It's called a regressive tax, right? Because those who make the least suffer the most. That's why we don't do flat taxes. We have, and that's why that's regressive taxation. The fair tax, which I am becoming more and more a proponent of, eliminates the regressive nature of it. However, to say that Rochester, New York has to have a $15 an hour minimum wage, which is the same as a Seattle or the same as a Silicon Valley, is to say to the person who makes $25,000 a year that you must pay the same rate of tax as the person who makes $1 million. So how can you in one breath say no, but in another say yes? It's an economic question, not a business one.
I wasn't talking about business.
I'm just saying, I feel
I
that,
wasn't talking about.
I can't get in this because my son was thrilled when they went to 8 or whatever it is right now, and if they went to 15, I mean, hey, and I'm all for my baby.
so,
Well, I think when I
would
started
be
working,
thrilled.
it may have been like $3 an hour, if that. And when I got my first job
Yeah.
through the Neighborhood Youth Corps Poverty Program, and we took care of kids for 50, 60 hours a week, and then get our paychecks until the end of the summer, that money supported my family.
okay.
Cost of living is so
That
hard.
was-
Hold
I
on,
mean,
maybe. So that's
So it
what.
would- it
So
was
you
never-
are definitely a person who trusts the government.
I'm not bringing. I
No,
don't,
no,
I-
it is.
I-
At the
no,
heart
no,
of
no,
it,
no,
we
no.
have to allow people to understand. Right at that. Let me finish.
Okay.
You trust the government to protect the worker more than you you think that the market will protect the worker.
I don't think it's a matter. If you're asking me if I trust the government to protect the worker more than I trust the employer to protect the worker, yes, I do.
How about the market?
I'm talking. No, I'm not. That's not what I'm dealing with.
No, I got you. But
Because
to
they-
me, this is. But
because
hold on. It crosses.
But you didn't let me finish my sentence.
But I asked the question about
But you,
market.
but you didn't let me finish my
But I
sentence.
won't let you finish it until tomorrow.
But what I'm saying is. The
What's going
problem,
on?
I don't think the problem, I mean, we can talk about what the market will bear, we can talk about taxation rates and all that kind of stuff, but the reality is, what are people doing to survive? And the reality is, to say that a family can survive on $7 an hour is not realistic.
That's right.
It's not realistic.
That's right. And for me to hire somebody as a small business to come in here where we could use, like I could teach them how to accomplish the video editing that we need to accomplish. It's not a hard task. We could go to any number of softwares that are out there right now. I could teach them what it is I need to do. And I could provide back to the community a better product, a product that helped the small businesses grow. I could do that for somebody who maybe right now doesn't have any income coming in, is completely dependent on the government subsidies for anything. I could do that, but I can't afford $15 an hour.
Well,
So now what?
I would say this.
That's
If
the problem.
if
Small businesses hurt.
Well, I mean, I'm a small business,
Right,
and
exactly.
I know I could use an employee.
That's
but,
right.
But I feel, and this is me, I have a moral compass that I live by. Okay?
Mhm.
So I'll give you an example. I will not name names, but I worked for a famous artist here in Rochester, and
Whose initials were?
there were two.
Music or paint?
They were not a painter, and there were two of us that were management. So
Okay.
we got paid a flat base and commissions. Okay, and then the guys that worked down on the floor, who are all artists, were making a lot less than we were. Okay, they had families, they were dependent on those jobs, and it got to a point where literally, when I resigned from that job, I resigned because I could not sleep at night, because I was sitting around the table with them every day at break. Them trying to figure out how they were going to have daycare for their kids. Them based on what they were getting paid. How were they? And these weren't people getting government subsidies, okay?
Hold on, wait. No.
But
I
didn't
resent.
finish.
I
didn't
resent
finish. But
government
wait,
subsidies.
But
We
you
all
said
know-
government
Yes,
subsidies.
I did. And there are people who receive government subsidies.
I know, but
and you can't be
I'm-
offended by that truth. And simply,
No,
if I
no,
want to
I'm
offer
not-
them
I'm
a
not-
part-time
I'm not
job,
offended. I'm not
you can't give me a
offended.
snide.
I'm
Go,
not-
rewind this.
I'm not
Government
offended.
subsidies.
I'm not offended that people get government subsidies.
But that I said
Because,
something about it, you are.
Well, because but I'm going to get back to my moral.
Narrator's
My
trying to
moral.
escape.
Don't you leave. My moral compass. I mean, in that particular situation, I'm breaking bread with those guys every day.
Sure.
And I could not do it anymore, so I quit my job.
And that's great.
I quit
And
my
you
job.
stood up, right? You stood up to the market, not to the employer. I know to yours. See, and that's the thing. Like to me, You made that choice.
But the argument that I would make without going into detail was that that particular market in that particular business could have paid those people more money.
They could have, but it's the choice
Could
of
have
the
paid
producer.
a living. Exactly. So that's what I'm saying. It's not.
Right, so
it's not
you-
about the market. It's about the employer.
No, it's not. It's actually about the person, and at the core
That's
of
what
it
I said.
all.
The employer.
No. At the core of it all, it's about the individual person. And you may stand up and say, I feel it's wrong that you're paying these people less, and I'm going to take a stand on it. And I, as the producer, may sit there and go, well, I don't care that you think it's wrong. I want to make $1 million a year. You are just as right to do that as I am to keep my $1 million a year.
Oh yeah,
Right.
I don't think you should
So-
keep. I don't think you should
Right.
keep.
So
Your
to
$1
me,
million.
it's at the core. That's it, and it's all about the people, and if you will, it's at the heart of the people. And to me, when I say market, people need to know, I mean people, because we are the market, and to truly even try to step out as an entrepreneur, you really have to at least start trusting that, you know, Keynes had some ideas, Hayek had some ideas, but Adam Smith kind of said, oh yeah, this is some basics that we have to agree upon to actually even be, you know, go out into the marketplace. And it's still the person at the end of the day. So long, and I think we're way off where I wanted to go, but to me, I don't think the government should be in the business of dictating wages, right? And
No,
you want that.
You'll never. I'm not.
And that's you want
No,
that.
I'm not saying. Well, let me start over. First of all, I'm not anti-government.
No, I'm not either.
I'm not
Right.
anti-government. I'm not one of those that says, well, I don't think I should have to pay taxes. Yes, I do think I
Right.
should have to pay taxes. Yes, I do want the road paved. Yes, there are people that don't have what I have, and I'm willing to pay more taxes so that they can have that. And if I have to pay more taxes so that the schools are better, I'm 100% for that. So see, I'm not one of those people that think, well, it's mine.
And I think you're the norm. I think you and I are generally the norm, and that we agree on that. And what we're seeing here, though, is just yet another division by people. And honestly, I will sit here and say, I don't understand it, but I will also sit there and go, I have a better understanding than a lot of people about economy and business. I mean, you and I have a lot more understanding about that stuff than a lot of people. But even we don't know enough to have a really, like, here is my opinion. All we ever do is pick sides. And we pick sides based on other people that we trust that had gone out and something about their life, something about their story says, I will trust them in the information that they're providing to me because I can't necessarily live this.
Well, I don't really agree with that.
Okay.
At least I don't do that.
Well, how,
I mean, a lot of my beliefs about government have a lot to do.
Not government.
Well, I'm just saying
Information in general.
Well, I'm just saying. I mean, we all carry with us. I carry a lot of life experiences with me that impact how I feel about some of these things. Some of those experiences were based on seeing the inner workings of government. Some of them were based on seeing the inner workings of private industry. Some of it was seeing the inner workings of academia. And you're right, it is all about people. It really is. And my saying that I think that there should be a minimum wage established by the government, because no one else will really do it, is not based so much on my pro-government beliefs. It's more based on what I've seen inside, though, what I've seen people do inside those organizations who are making those decisions, as opposed to saying, you know, what the market will bear, that kind of thing.
We're gonna go. We're gonna come back to conversations
about
every relationship should have. But I'm just gonna leave us with this: is that I have to disagree with that whole perspective
That's
simply
so great.
because of this. Simply because of this.
I love it.
If the problem,
I love it. I love it. We don't need unions anymore.
If the problem,
we don't need
wait a second. Wait, I let you talk.
We don't
I
need
let
paved
you talk.
roads
And there you go.
anymore.
There
We
you
want our
go.
children
I disagree with you,
we
so
want
therefore
our-
I won't let you talk.
We will let our children
There we
grow
go,
up
and we
to
will
be
now go to
free
break right now.
spirits
We are
who
done.
will be like canaries. But is it going to be?
No, it's just more of the same. It's just different perspective. It's, you know,
Is it the editor again?
it's kind of like, you know, it's like the white version of you has all the answers, but she has no idea what the white experience is like.
Well, they did on the show Mary Jane that happened.
Oh, wait. Oh,
We're
you're,
back.
wait. Oh, those are horrible comments that shouldn't have been made on social media. Sorry. But I don't know. What was it like growing up you and not really knowing the black experience?
Well, you know, it wasn't easy. It was actually quite difficult because I grew up in a bubble.
That's gotta be odd.
I grew up in this bubble.
I mean, I saw the movie about the boy in the bubble.
But no, I grew up in this bubble and watched this movie when I was about 8 years old called Cat on the Hot Tin Roof, and I thought it was great.
Okay, so it kind of gave you like, I want to be that person.
Well, it's not that I wanted to be that person, but I just thought it was great filmmaking, and I liked
okay.
the cinematography, and you know, I thought everyone was acting really well. But then this person seemed to feel that that the movie was damaging to children and would give her grandchildren nightmares, and that the fact that I would even think of letting a child see that at 8 years old
ridiculous.
was, you know, I had to have grown up in a bubble. She said, well, now To Kill a Mockingbird would have been different.
Absolutely.
And so I said, well, yeah, you know.
Catch her in the rye.
Well,
Let's go catch her in the rye. I
but,
want to be
but,
cold.
but what I told her, I said, yeah, my
yeah.
grandchildren saw To Kill a Mockingbird, so did my daughter. But then they kept asking me, why are all the black people sitting up there? What are they going to do to that black man? So then, you know, who was having the nightmares? You know what I mean?
But you don't get that.
No.
No, I don't know. So for those of you who have no idea what it is that we're talking about,
Oh, narrator came back.
it's
We were just about to start
narrator. What?
on the
No. We're about to have our
relationship.
relationship conversation.
Come on back, narrator.
Perfect timing.
We're
You gotta
done
see.
with
I
the minimum
cannot
wage.
believe.
Come back,
I
come
cannot
back.
believe the.
I'm gonna come back.
No, we're gonna finish
We
up.
gotta finish the conversation on relationships. Is that peer pressure?
No, that's
Are
not
we
peer
both-
pressure. No.
I mean, because you know.
She's young enough to be my daughter, so it's not peer pressure. Ooh, there go her shoulders already.
What's that?
She.
I was trying to get my keys.
Okay, well, it's okay because until Tim comes back, it's kind of like you're just sitting there, so you can just you're not on camera.
Oh,
See that
okay.
right there? That's actually on camera right now.
All right, that'll
So
work.
you're
See,
good.
you're in the peanut gallery.
So actually, we're right back in time, and again, once again, people would actually think like, wow, they plan this stuff. It's like every second it happens exactly how they want it planned.
Gorilla TV.
We are sharp. All right. So we are back, and we are getting right back into the conversations every
Should be had in
relationship.
every relationship.
Every relationship. And you guys started with the ones I think are sort of kind of like what everybody would sort of start with, like your beliefs and your values and children. One of the ones that I did hear that I did like was vision. I thought that was a good one. I thought that the idea like that you really should make sure that you have that common and shared vision. That's
Right.
really cool. But yesterday I posted online.
Supposed to be on camera. Let him watch.
Oh, Tim, narrate it. She's freaking out. Hold on. Stop. Get her off camera. She doesn't want to be on. Sorry.
She sits on the chair.
Because I was.
Here it is. Tag has his own show. He's trying to take over ours.
He assured me I was going to be on camera.
I didn't
It's
see it.
just
I just
that.
put her on camera.
Yeah, wait. You just said I didn't say anything. I said put her on camera.
See, I'm not on.
All right. So, anyways,
Poor baby.
sorry.
He did so
Yes.
well last week.
The stars are in the house, but you still have to wait another 30 minutes for those because
Cut yourself
right
while
here,
you're waiting.
right here's the real talk. Right here's the real talk.
Sure.
Yesterday, I asked a question online, which was this: I said, "What about like the conversation of my borders?" Right, and this
Is that
kind
different
of.
from my space?
I think it is. I think it is kind of my borders, right? And how far am I willing to go? And how about this one? The borders that, if crossed, cause me to feel disrespected, devalued, something along those lines. I mean, do you think? I mean, how far do you have to go? Because beliefs and values are great, but we also know that a lot of people's beliefs and values change pretty regularly in this day and age.
Well, they always did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, like fundamental.
Yeah. At
Everybody
the core.
has
At the
yeah,
core.
that you're raised with.
At the core.
You know what? That important stuff.
And sometimes as a young person, you move away from that, and then as you mature, you find yourself. I mean, I see
it's
that as a
still
parent.
always there.
That's what
Yeah.
I'm saying. As a parent of a child who's your age, really.
No.
Yeah, you guys
No.
are close in age, and
We're really not.
oh,
But I know
come
you're-
on,
well, that's
Tag
not
asked
gonna
that
happen.
question again.
Yeah, we're not gonna
But
go
what
there.
I'm saying is what I see, what I experienced even in myself with my mom, is that I rebelled against it, but in the end, it was still there, and I came back to it. My daughter came back to it. It's there, and so I think you're right. I think it's there. It's fundamental. It's in your core. So now, as far as the boundaries, can you kind of define the boundaries from you? 'Cause you
Yeah,
said
it's a
different
great question.
space.
It's your boundaries. I guess I'm pulling from last week's conversation with Mark, right? Which was, if in a relationship, if you give and give, you go too far. It's like you've got to draw your lines. So how do you go about drawing those lines, right? And I think that's a somewhat fair conversation to have. It's like, well, how do I draw those lines? I mean, let's face it, everybody. On the most simple scale, like I get angry and I walk away during an argument, and I find that unacceptable. That's too easy. But
isn't
Or
it almost
boundaries.
visceral? Is that
I don't know.
you know that you don't necessarily just verbalize it and say, if you do this,
Wouldn't boundaries still fall in the category of your ideals?
probably.
Because let's say it's a situation where you're with your guy, you guys are in a relationship. And your guy's looking at chicks and eyeing them when you're out and stuff like that. Hey, he's thinking, hey, nothing's happening. I'm just looking at him. But the woman's feeling uncomfortable. She's saying, no, that's That's not, I wasn't right. That is being very disrespectful. And he thinks it's not disrespectful. It's what they both believe, and it's a boundary that he crossed for her, not knowing. So that's what I'm saying. It's like, nobody talks about those things until they happen, and they always happen after you're married because you're still in that,
the honeymoon.
I love, I'm so in love with you phase. And then you find out, then when you start finding out all these things, then you start becoming turned off. Somebody becomes turned off, and then it starts being, you start being less attractive to that person, or you're less attracted to that person.
Well, and that's a lot of stuff that Mark was talking about. Because remember, he said you find out these two people never should have been together in the first place.
That's why I said, when I came back on the break, I think the number one question is, why do you want to get married? Because if you ask somebody why they want to get married, you're going to find your answer. Most girls are going to say, oh, I just want to be your wife. I just like the idea. And
like that.
what does that mean to you? If the guy's like, ask a guy why he wants to get married, they might sit there and think, yeah, why do I want to get married?
Sounds more like
I
me.
think when you get married, you have to be like, both of you have to want. I know that's why mine broke down, because if we'd ever asked that question, I think we would have gotten our answer, but we never did.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting.
Because we both figured out we'd never, I won't say never, because my children that came out of that union are the most important thing in the world. I mean, I would trade that. But for us together, we were so different. And it wasn't about being different. Nothing we did was the same. And we both just
Let me
didn't
make
like
a transition here for a moment, though, because we've been talking a lot about the marriage relationship.
Right.
And we said, actually, we want to expand this relationship to be more than just the marriage. It could be the mother or the father or the, into the community. Mm-hmm. So, but I like you were just saying, it's like, so now, what's one of those conversations that every parent needs to have with their kids?
Well, I think it's, for me with my kids, it's like, look, this is the deal.
That's
basically. I love you more than anyone else on this planet, okay? So whatever I tell you, you might not like, and this is how I talk to you. You might not like it, you might disagree with it, but I'm never going to tell you anything that's going to hurt you. So if you disobey and you go outside of that, just know it's never anything I wanted for you. Know what I'm telling you. Listen. So hopefully you will come back to it. And I mean, the Bible says, train up a child in the way it should go.
Well, the way my mother would put it to me, you can do that if you want to do it, but don't cry. Don't cry.
Either don't cry or
don't cry to me.
My mother told me a lot of things. My father. Did I follow all of them? No. But every time I didn't, I pretty much fell in a ditch. And then I regretted saying, God, I wish I listened to my parents.
Because you could hear that voice in the back.
I wish I listened to my parents. So I think when you get to that point, every kid gets to that point in some way. But to be able to reach in your mind and know you're at a point where, oh, I wish I had listened to them. Now I know what they mean. That's a good thing.
It is.
Because now they know.
Because I think the most important thing is that with your child, you're trying to instill your values, your vision, and regardless of whether or not they're rebelling, you just keep saying it.
Yeah.
Because I do believe they come back to it.
Yes.
They're still hearing it. So you should never give up and stop saying it.
Because once you condone everything you do just for the sake of not hurting them, that's when you're letting in problems. Because once you start saying, well, okay, hey, look, all right, I accept it. When the problems come, there's no line. So it's so blurred. They're like, well, what can you tell me? Right. You never disagreed with this. You never put your... I didn't know which way to go. Right. So how are you going to come
They didn't
later?
have a compass.
And exactly.
They didn't have a compass or a reference point or a benchmark to say, well, I did this and I probably shouldn't have done that. But they've heard the advice.
Exactly.
And so I think never give up talking to your children.
Never. You
Even
can't.
if it drives you
you're
insane.
dropping them off somewhere, it's like something. I mean, I talk to my kids constantly, and I was dropping my son off to work, and he says something. He's like, "Oh, if I had known it was going to go into this big life lecture, I wouldn't have."
There you go. My two grandchildren.
Like, I don't care.
My two grandchildren and my daughter sitting around the table. Oh my
Yes, they're
goodness.
like, oh.
Here comes one
But
of
you know
grandma's
what?
life lessons, those
My
little life
mom-
lessons.
My mom did it to me, and I love her for it. Because even though I messed up, I see it in my children, and even though they're going to have their things, it's nice when people say, "Wow, your kids are respectful," and that's like your reward. That's what you work for. You don't even know it. But then when you get that, it's like, wow, I can go anywhere. And I'm saying this because I'm in a situation now where there's someone, my life was parallel, kids the same age, and it wasn't like that. It was like, let them do what they want, Oh, no, okay, you can have your way, you can have your way. And boy, the differences are so evident, and it's not good.
So when we come back, let's kind of take this to a different direction. I'm not going to let you guys know the direction I'm going to take it.
Oh.
But we're going to go with this. We're going to be right back after these brief sponsor messages. Hello.
And I'd like to thank our guest Ray, but she has to leave
What?
right now.
We still have like
No.
19 minutes.
Tess is going to continue.
Are you, what?
Chuck, did you want to do
I gotta go upstairs.
Lexington?
No, we're good.
Talk to the kids. They're perfect to talk to because they're going to ask them
twins.
what
Trying to figure out all the pacing, because I know you'd said before that we wanted to make sure that we were doing our pacing thing properly. So on our Udicci update, we kept that going a little bit faster, and
Okay.
I'm thinking that this one slowed down a little bit. So I'm not exactly certain. So that's what tonight's all about for all those. Yeah, he's still watching. So the conversations that should be had in every relationship. I think we heard a lot about the parent. I'm sorry, the personal relationship. And maybe this is more of the ivory tower stuff you always talk about, the ivory tower conversations. But what are the conversations we should be having as a nation?
Well, I honestly believe that whether it's a nation, whether it's a child-parent relationship, whether it's a spousal relationship or romantic relationship, there are certain commonalities as far as those conversations. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Because we're human beings, and we have to deal with each other as human beings. So I don't think that the fact that it's not a romantic relationship or it's not a mother-father relationship changes the fact that, because really, I guess I'm trying to think of what I saw at an organization where everyone was just sort of fighting with everyone, just fighting, disagreements and all that. So, I mean, I'm bringing it down to an organization, but at least that's better than, let's say, a couple.
Yeah.
And so no one was getting along. So in comes this person who has a gift, I call it a gift, who knows how to take this population of people who are fighting and say, what do these people have in common? Okay? What is the common thing that all of these people who are fighting have? And in that particular case, it was the organization itself. Everyone loved the organization. They were just fighting with each other.
Okay.
Okay, so you can take that to the level of a country,
That's interesting.
right?
Sure.
Yeah. So
Yep.
everyone's fighting with each other, but the common thing was we all loved the organization and the services we were providing to the public.
Interesting.
Because that's really what it was. I mean, it was the Alaska Marine Highway System.
Okay.
So we all knew whatever our jobs were, we weren't just pushing paper, we were getting people transported. We were getting food to our communities. So we were providing a service. And we loved that we were doing that. We were just fighting with each other. And what we needed was someone who had the ability to come in and say, okay, it was somewhat manipulative, but I learned a lot from it, you know. Okay, look, this is what we have here. We all love this. So the first thing we need to do is start empowering everyone, so that everyone has ownership in it. We all have ownership in it. From the person who takes that phone call, that first phone call that says, hello, Alaska Marine Highway System, can I book your reservation? That job is no less important than the engineer on the ship that makes sure that the motor's running and we're getting to where we need to go, or the stewards on the ship that are feeding the passengers. So how do we get everyone to move forward with this vision? And so the idea was, we may not agree on everything, but we know there are certain things that are the right thing to do. We have to establish our moral compass as an organization.
And so we would actually say, so basically then one of the first...
I am not talking about religion or anything like that.
No, I got you. Well, it's a common moral compass.
Right. A culture. Establish our
we have to
organizational
reestablish
culture.
our culture.
Right.
Right. And I do absolutely understand that the whole culture aspect into organizations, which it is about the tenets of belief system. So basically, the conversations we need to begin with as a country are, let's define our common values.
Right.
So, let's define our common values.
How do we see ourselves? We're so busy fighting with each other. You know, we're doing all of this, but we don't have that. We don't have the rallying cry. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, we don't have. Well, we don't have. We don't have definition. First off, we just have what we really have is a bunch of division.
Right.
And that gets back to what I was saying earlier, which was, the whole idea to me, what I was talking about was, who's your trusted source? Mm-hmm. If your trusted source is simply you and your knowledge, well, that's fair. Everybody has life experience. Mm-hmm. Well, you and your opinion, well, that's fair. What shaped your opinion? Where did you get the information for your opinion? Well, it's just my opinion because of what I've heard. Great. Have you pursued learning in that world? Have you pursued any kind of knowledge? Yes, I have. Great. Who fed you that knowledge? At that point, you've got a trusted source. Mm-hmm. You're saying, I'm willing to trust that person with knowledge. And what they impart to me. I think that that's a huge part of really bringing communities together, is for us to try to find those common trusted sources that we can pull from, create some absolute definition that we can work from between each other, and say, okay, can I hold you to this standard? And you hold me to this standard? We just defined it together. And we had a fun thing with that the other day at the meeting, right? Like, oh, can I hold you?
That was so painful. That was so painful. I just wanted to just stab myself, and I wasn't supposed to be there.
But I thought it was really, it's so off the cuff. She wasn't thinking about anything, but as soon as you're like, well, can we hold you accountable to this? And I get a wonderful person, everything else, but you're like, oh, blah, 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 blah. As soon as that question is, can I hold you accountable to this? People are like,
well, see, I think in my experience, in that little test tube or whatever you want to call it, it focused less on the accountability and more on the empowerment and ownership.
Okay.
Okay, because once you got those two pieces, you weren't always.
Once you have the.
Once you had those two pieces, you weren't always, because the fighting before that was the accountability piece. It's your fault.
It's your
fault.
Right.
It's your fault. But once the shift away from that
to the
started,
ownership,
to the ownership, and
then it's like, oh, wait, you want to give me ownership? Yes.
Well,
but I don't want it.
But it was even that there really was no resistance to that, because people did feel empowered. And so by the time, I would say maybe even a year later, those same reservation clerks who in the beginning felt they were underpaid, no one cared about them, no one cared what they did, their jobs weren't important, they would stand in those meetings and say, how's our revenues going? Because they understood, because everyone made sure they understood, you're the front line.
Yep. You're the front line.
You're the front line.
We've created these measurements.
You are
right.
critical to this entire operation. And so this it wasn't about accountability. Because that in a way, like, I believe in holding people accountable, but when you start talking about accountability, it's easy to fall into negativity.
And it is.
Whereas if you speak of empowerment and ownership, it's more positive.
Absolutely. And if you will, and I'm really good with looking at degrees of words, but ultimately, and I'm with you, we've had the conversation before about, accountability can be taken negative. Like, why? Right? Well, it's kind of like tolerance. We shouldn't talk about tolerance.
Right. But
why?
I believe that, people, if we've done everything we needed to do, then you have to expect, what is the quote from Lord of the Rings? With great responsibility.
With great power comes great responsibility.
Great responsibility, right? Or something like that.
That, I think, is I was having a conversation yesterday, and we were talking about the whole idea of, like, why wouldn't you want more of this thing that you feel is good? Why wouldn't you? What would stop you? And it came down to, like, well, honestly, I don't know that I want the responsibility.
Right.
And I think that there's a lot of people out there right now who honestly just don't want the responsibility.
Right. They just want it to work.
And they just want it to work. I don't want to be responsible for it. I just want it this way.
Right.
But so you want to change. Yes. All right. But you're not willing to change. Right. No. Okay. But you want to tell everybody else to change. You want to tell people how it should be. You want to tell them to change, but you don't want to change.
You want to be in
Correct.
the peanut gallery.
Yeah, I want to be in the, and I think we have
and throw peanuts. Well, I think I was going to bring that up. I think part of what causes the divisiveness is change, because the world is changing, and there is nothing that we can do about that. And I don't mean that in a negative way.
No.
It's changing. So rather than resisting it and fighting, because really at the core of the divisiveness is the change, right? That you don't like, because you hear people say, but we want our America back. What does that mean? You want your America back,
right?
What does
like,
it mean?
I'm sorry. At what point did it become yours? It became mine when my children served, when my ancestors came here, when mine died for in war for this, when mine were slaves and built it, when mine did that. Like, so it's whose country?
Yeah. What does that?
Right.
What does that mean?
Wait. You mean this is our country?
Right. So but that's what
I've got to share this with you. Like, you don't even know your own experience, and what's all that about?
But at its core, divisiveness is the fear of change. The fear of change was at the core of those battles, because in that particular organization, one of those changes was the coming of me.
Okay.
And that sent a lot of people who had been comfortable for a really long time. And here comes black female.
You were at that time a black female?
Yes.
Okay.
From New York City. Okay.
some of the stories you've told me are starting to come true. I think Tennessee might be wrong.
Who speaks so fast that no one can understand what you're saying, okay? But that was one of because it was a male-dominated organization. Port captain, port engineer. Who was doing all the administrative work? The women, right? And so here comes this female now, black female, and it's like, oh my goodness, how dare you? You know what I mean? So, the testosterone was coming out. I've got to show that I am the port engineer, I am the port captain. And I'm like, well, I don't care. But I'm just using that as an example that one of the things that was causing this was change was coming.
Yeah, and we can't stop the change, and that's
was coming.
And we've got just a couple minutes left before we go to switch over, and that was actually one of the things. I don't even know if I posted it today because I started getting on my soapbox about that. Honestly, social media, right?
If it's longer than a paragraph, I don't read it.
Yeah, I know. I get it.
I'm gonna be
Tess,
honest.
be here by 6:30.
I read those, but anything
like I was in the building, like really. But actually, it's interesting because to me, social media is one of those things that, like, right now, honestly, between like my wife and I mean, she's building her business, and I'm building, this over here, and like we're like two ships passing in the night, even though we sleep in the same bed,
Right.
Same children, we raise them, it's like, but social media has almost come between us, and we live in the same house, and you'd like to think that the answer is, well, stop social media. No, that's not going to happen. Social media is a change, if not the change, but it's an agent of the change. And it's something that we have to A, figure out how to use together, B, find out how to agree upon together. Create communities online that we can, here's our common values.
Right.
Be willing within our community to have the crucial conversations that we feel need to be had without fear of retribution.
Right.
Right? And right now, we can't have the conversations in our country because, oh my, you actually do believe that it should be $15? Do you have no idea what that's going to do to the economy? And I know a PhD who says you're wrong, and you've got a quote there who says I'm wrong. So we may as well just stop that conversation right now. But we should actually be seeking the core common beliefs that we need to have, and those are other conversations I think we need to be, start having.
I think
as a country.
Until we accept the idea that it's all going to change, because it is.
Yes, it
it's
is.
already changing, and let the past go. I mean, just let it go. There is no what happened to my America.
That's right. There is the future America or the future something, and it's
Right.
whether you're in that future or whether you're fighting that future.
Right.
And there's
Either
going to be
lead,
something.
follow, or get out of the
way. All right, so with that, we are going to end tonight's show of Verbum, and thank you for tuning in. And the real stars are up, Mercedes Vasquez and Julio Jordan. Hold on.
I better give him his props. He did
And
that
the
last week.
real star, the rock star.
Dun, 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 dun.
There it is. There are the guns. There it is. Ricardo. Hashtag Nieves.
Hashtag whoop that ass.
Hashtag whip that ass. And we are out of here. Fade to Lexington. Good night.
Chuck,
What?
we're supposed to have a transition. You're not supposed to end our show saying,